Hi friends, welcome to another episode of the Cozy Cottage Crochet podcast. My name is Hannah, this is Nova, and this is a podcast all about crochet, a little bit of knitting, sometimes sewing, and generally living the yarniest life possible in St. Petersburg, Florida, where I live. How are you? It has been a whirlwind of 2 weeks. This one is here to say hi, but only for a minute because it is very close to nap time. In fact, we're already a couple minutes overdue. Can you say hi, friends? Yeah. What have you been doing, Nova? What have you been doing lately? You got a mouthful of pretzels, don't you? Yeah? Did you miss Mommy while I was on a trip? Oh, you're gonna go get the Nuffle Bunny? Go get it. If you are looking for me anywhere on the interweb, you can find me as The Cozy Cottage Crochet on Instagram and Facebook. You can find me as The Cozy Cottage on Ravelry. We do have a Ravelry group for this podcast. All of that is linked directly down below. And I have an email address set up specifically for this podcast. It is thecozycottagecrochet@gmail.com. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to say about the podcast, email is the best way to get a hold of me. And please be patient, I'm a little behind. You got it? Oh, let's show everyone. Show everyone the bunny. The bunny! This bunny came home with me from Rhinebeck, and we are calling it a Nuffle Bunny because we have a book, a children's book called Nuffle Bunny, which we got at the little free library around the corner. And I had to tape it back together because it was not in good condition. But it's about a girl named Trixie who has a Nuffle Bunny, and she wants to take her Nuffle Bunny to school. But then what happens, Nova? What happens when Trixie goes to school with her Nuffle Bunny? Who does she see? Who else has a Nuffle Bunny? Sonia has a Nuffle Bunny too. And the morning was bad and the afternoon was worse, and their teacher took the Nuffle Bunnies away, but then gave them back at the end of the day. But they returned the wrong Nuffle Bunny. So Trixie and Sonia took home the wrong bunny. And they both realized at 2:30 a.m. And then they had to rendezvous with their parents to return the bunnies. And then they were best friends. So I told her... Down. Down, down, down? Can you show everyone your Nuffle Bunny? I told her I was bringing her a Nuffle Bunny from Rhinebeck. And it is so soft. Its body is not stuffed. It's very floppy. And she loves it very much. And what else did I bring you from Rhinebeck?
Robot.
A robot. A wooden robot. And a book. I found you a book about a tractor. And Mommy's friend Stevie gave you a book about a cow that goes moo. You're silly. So yeah, I told her I had to go on a trip far and wide to bring her back a Nuffle Bunny. And she was very excited. Are you ready to go night-night? Are you ready to go night-night?
All done.
You're all done? Okay.
Okay.
Can you say bye-bye?
Bye-bye.
Can you say see you later?
See you later.
Can you say happy birthday to you?
Happy birthday to you.
She saw a big happy birthday balloon at Publix yesterday, which is a grocery store coming out. A lady was carrying it and she went, oh, happy birthday to you. Yeah. Are we ready to go night-night? Okay. Say, I'll see you next time. Okay. Hello, I'm back. It is about 15 minutes later. I rushed around the house, changed a diaper, put a baby to bed, made some tea. Yes, I know this mug says Dad on it. Though I have one that says Mom, and it's dirty because I used it last night. So I'm drinking out of the Dad mug. And this tea has a little bit of caffeine in it because Mama needs some help today. Clearly, I'm drinking out of a Dad mug. And I threw some chicken violently in the crock pot for dinner. So here we are, and we should get started because I have so much to show you, so many projects I have had my fingers in, and of course I went to Rhinebeck, so there will be a recap of that at the end as well. So grab your favorite drink or a drink and your project, and let's get settled, shall we? I do have a finished object. I cast it on in the airport before we boarded our plane to New York, and I finished it last night. So I got almost the entire thing done at Rhinebeck. I thought that I had 1 inch left before the decreases to still complete when I got home, but when I measured Tuesday morning, I actually only had like a 1/4 of an inch left before the decreases. So this entire hat was done at Rhinebeck. This is a lovely, lovely bag that I got from Kalisha, who is Nadira Tani on Instagram, and she has the Quirky Monday Crafts podcast as well as the Etsy shop, and she made this beautiful bag. So I took her with me to Rhinebeck in the form of this bag. Maybe someday we can go in person, Kalisha. And what is in here is a sockhead hat, and it is for a friend of mine. It is made in bee woolen sock, 85% merino, 15% nylon, and the colorway is End of the Rainbow. This is what it looks like. That's how much I have left. I don't know how many grams that is. And this is the hat. I haven't blocked it yet, but the ends are woven in. I will block it probably tonight or tomorrow and then get it in the mail because it's going to a cold place for a very dear friend of mine. And when I cast it on, I was like, oh, this is pretty. And then I kept working it and I was like, this isn't just pretty. This is like magical. This yarn is so pretty and it makes such a good hat. I haven't ever made anything with bee woolen yarn before, and it is so plump. Like there's something about the way that this base is, regardless of the color, that's like very squishy. It's squishy and round and fluffy, and like every stitch of this yarn was a delight to work with. And it's just beautiful. Also, I'm very proud of my tension. Like, look how neat that is. It's not even blocked yet. So I'm really, really happy with it. This is a sockhead hat. I did 4 inches of ribbing, and then I worked it until it was 11 inches from the bottom of the cuff. And then I did the decreases, and I did them correctly this time. If you've been around, you know I fudged the hot pink hat, which I ended up not frogging, by the way. But I did the decreases correctly on this hat, so it looks good. And then there's a stitch marker that I was using to keep my place. It's a little panda. I love it so much. I love it so much. A lovely person who is the owner or dyer behind Pandtastic Yarns said that she liked my sweater at Rhinebeck and gave me this panda. And I just think it is so adorable. And so I went and followed them on Instagram. She makes pretty yarn. I'd never heard of them before. I guess it's a newer dyer, but I really, really loved this panda. And I think it's going to be one of my most used stitch markers by far. So yes, I just have to get a picture of this after it's blocked, and then it will be off in the mail. Oh my gosh, that reminds me. I have a prize to announce. So I didn't have time to pull prizes from the Cozy Summer Mail for the last episode, but I have pulled them and contacted everyone, and only one person has not gotten back to me. So there were 3 prizes. One went to Jackie, who is Bayou Jack. One went to Adriana Yarns, who is Adriana. Those 2 have been mailed and hopefully received by now. And then the last one was Sue, who is Sue Pink. And Sue, you might be in California. You have not responded to my Ravelry message. So Sue, if you're watching, please get back to me and I will get your prize in the mail to you. And we will have another make-along running soon. I just need a couple of weeks to get myself organized. But yes, the prizes were all pulled using a random number generator. I didn't write down the actual post numbers. Why, I don't know, probably because my life is crazy. But they were pulled using a random number generator, and then I sent Ravelry messages to those who participated. So Sue, get back to me and I'll give you a prize in the mail. So this is done, and I want to show you, this is probably my favorite Rhinebeck purchase, and it's not even yarn. It's what I was using for the sockhead hat. I didn't take any needle stoppers with me. And the needles kept poking through my bag because they're so sharp, because they're so small, especially when I was doing the ribbing. It was 2.75 millimeter needles, I think. So I picked up these little sheep rubber stoppers, and I think this is the favorite thing that I came home with from Rhinebeck. They make me smile every time I look at them. I just want them to be on another project. They're definitely for smaller needles. They have a little bitty hole, so I can't use them on a big project, but like, oh my gosh, I love it so much. Those are pure happiness to me. So that is my finished object. I don't have any other finished objects. I do have a half object, which of course is a sock, because why would it be anything else? I have been crocheting, although I have been doing a lot of frogging, so we'll talk about that in a moment. I have finished the first Swamp Monster sock. So if you were with me the last episode, you will know that I dyed this sock blank myself. And this is not at all the color I was going for, but it's very much like a swamp monster. Someone commented and said that it looked like the slime from Ghostbusters, and now I can't unsee that. It like perfectly looks like the slime from Ghostbusters. It's amazing. So this is sock number 1. I totally made a billion mistakes on this sock. I don't know how. I dropped 2 stitches on the heel that I had to fudge. And then I did the decreases incorrectly on the toe, and I ended up with 1 stitch more on one side than the other, and I had to just fudge it. I don't know what I was thinking when I was working on this sock, but this one is done. And I've started the next one. And it is halfway down the foot. So we'll see, yeah, about halfway down the foot. Interesting. So I'm just getting to a part where there's a lot of purple in the sock blank. So we'll see how the toe, I'm guessing the toe is gonna be somewhere around here, but we'll find out. So yeah, this one is not quite the same color. Like it's similar, but it's lighter and a little bluer, which is interesting. It has a little more orange in it. So that is ongoing. We have 1 Swamp Monster sock done. I will totally wear these when they are finished, and 1 that is on the go. And the other pair of socks that I was working on has gotten very, very little love. In fact, what, an inch? Yeah, literally an inch. So I was here last time. I moved my stitch marker and everything, and now I'm here. So 1 inch on the foot that has been done. This is a sock set that Eden from Eden's Fun Yarns, and I'll link her yarn down below. She sent this to me after I had emergency surgery a couple of months ago, and I just love it. So I've done 15 rounds of 2x2 ribbing, and then I did 15 rounds, maybe 16, of stockinette before I did a shadow wrap heel. And then I've just been working on the foot. I need to do that for a little while and then do the toe. And then we'll be done with only 1 sock. Then we have to start the next one. I may take a break from socks for a bit. I don't know. I've been knitting a lot of socks lately, but I didn't knit socks for quite a while. So my sock mojo came back strong, and now it's like waning again, but my garment mojo is way up here. But socks are much more portable and also easier to make than garments. So I don't know how this is gonna work, but once those socks are done, maybe I will take a break. I'm trying to decide what to show you next. So let's talk about the garment, first of all. This we talked about last time because I wasn't sure I was gonna have enough yarn. And it is the Neverland top, which is a pattern by Nomad Stitches. And I had finished it, but not done the sleeves. And currently there are 2 balls of yarn hanging off of this. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to try this on or not. I have done the seaming. I can't remember if last time I had done the seaming and the edging or not. But this is Numa Numa yarns in their base Toasty in the colorway Raspberry Jam. Numa Numa doesn't dye yarn anymore. The company doesn't exist. So this yarn is from like 2013 or something like that. And I had 2 skeins of this that were sent to me. They appeared in my mailbox, and they had a note on them that said, "From the Yarn Fairy." I don't know who that is, but I decided to make this top. And so what I did is I was making the small. I thought I would have enough yarn. And I was making because my gauge is so wildly different than the pattern calls for, I was making the small size instead of the large that I would normally make using those stitch counts. But I added a little bit of length because I just wasn't comfortable with a crop top right underneath my boobs. And I also wasn't comfortable with having this mesh right on top of my boobs. It's just not my style at all. So I added some length, but I thought I would have enough yarn. Well, these sleeves eat yarn like nobody's business. I have to do 9, so you can see this row right here. I have to do 9 rows of this. There is no way I will get 9 or even like another 2 rows out of these little nuggets of yarn that are attached. So I went on Ravelry and I found a couple of people who had this colorway, and the colorway varied so wildly, but I found one that I thought looked the same, and I messaged them, and I messaged like 3 different people, and one of them agreed to sell me their skein of yarn. So it arrived. and it is very clearly not the same color. I'm thinking it will be okay since it's just the sleeves. I don't know, like this would go better than this one. I just don't know what to do because clearly that's very different, and that's the problem with dye lots, you know? So I'm gonna see if I can, even though this has 2 balls of yarn and I'm wearing a t-shirt, if I can try it on over my t-shirt for you. It looks ridiculous, yes, I know. So I will be wearing this with like a black tank top underneath it probably, but this is kind of how it fits. The armholes are not too tight. That's what I was really worried about, was that the armholes would be too tight and then I would need to lengthen them, but after blocking, it's fine. It goes to right here, and this is my belly button. That's my belly button. So if I were wearing high-waisted pants, it would kind of come to right there, which is fine with me. So yeah, it fits really well. I really like it. I just don't know what to do about the sleeves because I don't wear sleeveless things. I never have. I probably never will. It's just not me at all, and I don't know why that is. I just don't like to do it. Doesn't make me feel comfortable, so I don't do it. And this is the other side. It has a V-neck, and I've done the little picot edging on the top and the bottom. It's super cute. I've done 1 round, well, 1.5 rounds on each sleeve. And then I was like, oh, I'm not gonna have enough yarn for this, which makes me very sad. And I don't know what to do because now I have this skein of yarn, which is like, it's not just a little bit different. This is like a wildly different color. Like this is a different dye. There's no way that's the same. I feel like it looks okay. Like I could have reddish sleeves, but I don't know what to do. I was gonna maybe make black sleeves. That's going to limit what I can wear this with. So I don't know what to do. I'm just kind of in thinking mode on this right now. I am gonna wind this up and at least see what it looks like on a sleeve before I pass ultimate judgment. I can always frog it. But I really was just making that to be like a test pattern for how I want a crop top or a fitted top to fit me. I wasn't expecting to like it so much, and I like it so much that I want to wear it, and now I don't have enough yarn to finish it. And then I got more yarn, but it's not the same color, not even in the same ballpark. So I just don't know what to do about that. If you have any ideas, please let me know down below. Let me know. I also did 2 swatches for, let me show you, this top, and I'm going to be using a different yarn, I think, because I don't like how it's working up. Let's see, it says I'm browsing as a guest. Sign in. Oh, I hate it when Ravelry logs me out because my password to Ravelry is so long. So this is the Fala Larry top. It's by Elizabeth, who has Crochet Cakes, and she made it in a sport weight yarn that is, what size? Drop Saffron, which is Egyptian cotton sport. I have a cotton linen nylon yarn that was a gift from my friend Amanda, and I thought it would be perfect for this top because it's like a cotton linen blend. But I did this swatch first, and then I did this swatch second, and I don't like it. The yarn is ever so slightly thick and thin, and because it's cotton, the stitch and linen, the stitch definition is like really, really intense, and because it is ever so slightly thick and thin, it's making it bumpy and lumpy, which is fine, but not for what I'm wanting to use it for. So this yarn is not going to work for this project. I did 2 swatches, I soaked them and laid them flat, and then I was like, I don't really like it, but let me throw it in the washer and dryer to see if that changes the texture at all, because I know linen you can just wash and dry endlessly and it only gets softer. So I don't hate it, but it's not what I'm going for. And I know that if I make the top in this yarn, I'm not going to wear it. So therefore, I must not make the top in that yarn, and I must go in my stash and find a different yarn. She uses sport weight yarn, and I think I'm probably gonna make it in fingering. and maybe just make a larger size stitch count. I'm not sure, but it's really, really pretty. And I'll show you the back too. So the front has that lace panel, and then the back looks like this. I will probably do a modification where I don't have that keyhole in the back, just because I would prefer not to have that there, I think. Like maybe I would even make 2 front panels and kind of seam them together. We'll see. I may have to do some modifications. But what I need to do is go into my stash and make a different yarn choice so that I can make that top. Because I just wasn't, this is why you swatch, right? Because I was sold on that yarn and I wound it up and I was like, this is gonna be perfect. And then I swatched for it and I was like, this is not perfect. This is not what I was looking for at all. And maybe I need to make a bag or something sturdy out of that yarn, but not a garment to wear. The next project that I thought I was making progress on and now I am not again is this shawl that has been ripped out like 17 times. 17 is an exaggeration, but I do think it has been ripped out at 6 or 7 times. It's about to be ripped out one more. So it is the Ice Yarns shawl design that I have been playing with for months now, and I keep, like I had like half a ball done and then I was like, oh, you can't see the texture pattern because it's variegated yarn. So I ripped it out. I've been trying different texture patterns and I finally settled on this, which I love. It's got a bobble edge on one side, and I was just so happy with how this was looking. I love it on the increase side. It's so pretty. However, what I realized is that my plan was to make this a big asymmetrical shawl, which means that when you wear it, you don't wear it like this. You wear it with this edge close to your neck, which means the bobbles will be up here and not down here. I wanted the bobbles to be on the bottom of the shawl. So you would wear it this way around your neck, and then the point will come way down. You don't wear it this way because it won't stay that way. So I have to frog this and either put the bobbles just only on this side or put bobbles on either side of the row so it has one on every single edge, and then I can end with a giant row of bobbles as well. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Bobbles take forever, you know, and I was really loving the idea of only having one every other row. But yes, it's about to be frogged yet again. Someday this yarn will be what it's supposed to be. And unfortunately that day is not today. But I made some progress and I was really excited about it. And I worked on it for like half an evening and I was like, oh my gosh, I got all that done. I was like, this is such a simple pattern. Everyone's gonna love it. I love it. It's like mindless, but then you have a bobble every other row to kind of help keep you engaged. And then I was like, dang it, they're on the wrong side. They're on the wrong side. Why did I do that? Why did I not think about that? I don't know. If anyone knows where my brain has gone, please let me know so that I can retrieve it. I did, however, start working on a design that also has been frogged, I want to say 3 times, and you have not seen it in a while. It's a lace weights shawl design. It is called the Alina shawl. It's going to be the next shawl in my nerdy women shawl designs, which the first one was the Vanya cowl, named after Vanya Hargreaves from the Umbrella Academy. And the second one was Ciri, the Ciri shawl, named after Cirella from the Witcher series. And this is going to be named Alina from the Shadow and Bone series. The yarn that I'm using is Malabrigo lace. I have 2 50-gram balls, so 100 grams of this. It is in the colorway Wales Road, and you get 470 yards for 50 grams. It is a single ply yarn. You can even see that I've still been, this was the last iteration that has yet to be frogged on ball number 2. Maybe it's been frogged more than 3 times, I don't know. But I sat down and I was just like, you know what? I tried 2 different hook sizes and something just clicked. And actually, I have made a significant dent. Do you know the best feeling after you frogged a project is when you keep going again, like you started again, and you get past the point where you rewound the yarn and now you're just on the regular cake again? It feels so good. So I worked on this and I took this with me as a crochet project to Rhinebeck. I had the knitting project with me only during the day, the sockhead hat. I did knit on it in the morning, but at night I tried to alternate back to crochet so that my hands wouldn't hurt so much. And that's something I do a lot actually, is alternate between knitting and crochet and between projects, because I want to give my hands a break because my hands are tired. But this is how much I have done. Oh, it's so pretty. So from here, it just looks like a magical lace shawl, right? It's actually super open lace here. And then it has these little stripes of solid. So we have open lace, solid. And I've gone through 1, 2, 3. Let's see if I can, yeah, you can kind of see it there. This is the lace part and this is the solid. Because this is a lace weight shawl, it's very crumply, but when it is blocked, it's gonna be like that. It's gonna be very exciting. I wanna say I'm not even halfway through the first ball, and this should be a 2-ball project because it's already this big, which I really am excited about. And again, this is an asymmetrical shawl. So now I can really show you what I meant with the bobbles. So when I was working the bobbles, they were on this edge of the last shawl. And this, like if this doesn't stay and it's like wet, like it's a weird way to wear it. So when you're working an asymmetrical shawl, what I like to do is flip it and wear it this way. And this, the bigger your shawl gets, the more it stays. Plus you have a fun little end to play with, which I'm always doing. So this should be plenty big enough, especially after blocking, and it's gonna weigh nothing because the whole thing will weigh 100 grams. I'm really excited about this, and it's a really simple kind of meditative project to work on. I love the yarn. The single ply is delicious as far as stitch definition is concerned. And I'm just really happy about it. I'm really happy about it. So yeah, this one has gotten a significant amount of love. I think that I worked from here all the way to here while I was at Rhinebeck. I worked a little bit on this on the plane as well. I was knitting and I wanted to, as I said, give my hands a break. So this was the main crochet project that I worked on at Rhinebeck, and I'm really happy about how far it's coming along, and hopefully I'll get some time to dedicate to it. I need more projects on the go that are just mindless, or at least that I have the repeat memorized for, so that I can just crochet at the end of the night. I find a lot of times at the end of the night, my brain is just melted out of my ears, especially like if Nova has been having a tough day, or if like I'm a pastor, so if my people are having a tough day and I'm like putting out a lot of emotional energy, at the end of the day, I don't have any energy left to do complicated things. So simple is where I need to be. I need to have projects on the go that I can just pick up and know what I'm doing. But also, that is my aesthetic when I design as well. And if you look across my designs across the board, they are fairly simple. I tend to go for things that just feel more classic, if that makes sense. Like my style, I love stockinette fabric because it's just classic and beautiful. I love like plain solid crochet without a ton of holes. I love that lace pattern. It's not all kinds of craziness going on. And there is a place for that. And there's all kinds of things, all kinds of patterns that I want to make that have that. There is one dream pattern I want to make, and it's a blanket. It's called the Tessellated Afghan. And I think it's been in my favorites for years now. And it's just too complicated. Like, I don't know when I'm gonna have time to make that Afghan, but it's beautiful. And I want to be that person, but I'm not that person. Maybe when Nova's grown, then I'll be that person. So I have one more crochet project to show you. This is a lot of projects. I feel like I'm flying. I'm talking so fast, but if I don't, we'll never get through everything. I have one more crochet project and then a knitting project to show you. They're both garments, and this is my obsidian cardigan number 2. And actually, I'm going to have to frog part of it, but I will show you. I'm almost through the first 50 gram ball. This is Cascade 220 Superwash Fingering. It's 100% superwash merino. It comes in 50 gram balls. I got a bunch of it to make a second version of my obsidian cardigan, which is a pattern design that I've been working on since before Nova was born, which is the problem, let me tell ya. So I finished the swatch, and then I graded the pattern. Cool. And it's a good thing that I didn't just try to release the pattern given my former grading before Nova was born, because the math is wrong. Like, wrong in several areas. I thought that I fixed them, and then when regrading the pattern, I realized that I may have an issue with the stitch count, because the way that this is worked is worked in one long strip back on the back of the shoulders. That's how it starts. You work ribbing, so you have a panel of ribbing, and then you work a front panel, you pick up stitches on the back and work a back panel, then you join under the arms and work in rows all the way down. I was convinced, I don't know why, when I was originally grading this, that the pattern was a multiple of 3 plus 1. That's just what I had in my head. And if I had questioned that, maybe I wouldn't have had an issue, but it's not a multiple of 3 plus 1. It's a multiple of 3. So the math is wrong. So I had to regrade. So I regraded the whole thing. I didn't realize it was a multiple of 3, not a multiple of 3 plus 1. I added up all the stitch counts for all the panels, and I was like, I don't think this is gonna work because this now is a multiple of 3. And I kept charting it out. I charted it out like 4 times. And I was like, it works, so something's wrong. Either my chart is wrong and it's a multiple of 3 plus 1 and I'm missing a stitch somewhere, or my math is wrong and it's not a multiple of 3 at all, which means I need to regrade a certain part of this pattern for the front panels. So I took this with me to Rhinebeck. This is the back strip. So you start with a back strip of ribbing like this. And then you count a certain number of stitches in. You mark for the right shoulder, you mark for the left shoulder. This is the neck hole. Then you continue doing a little bit of ribbing, and then you start the actual stitch pattern. The ribbing worked out just fine, but when I started the actual stitch pattern, I am 1 stitch short. And then this was on the plane on the way back, and I was like, oh, it's a multiple of 3. Why that had never crossed my mind, I don't know, but it didn't. It never crossed my mind. So what I did yesterday, I took a little bit of time when Nova was sleeping on her nap, and I fixed that problem. So what I have to do actually is frog 4 rows of ribbing and 1 row of pattern, and then remark the right and left shoulder stitch markers that are hanging, and then restart the ribbing. Because the issue that I ran into, and I don't want to spend too much time belaboring this because I already talked about this on my Patreon, on my design vlogs, and I know not everyone is interested in math. But the issue that I was running into is that the ribbing needed to be a multiple of 2 plus 1, so it needs to be an odd number. But the multiple of 3s are not always odd numbers. So getting them to match without doing a weird decrease has been difficult. But I believe that I have worked it all out. You should see my Excel spreadsheet. Truly, it is a horrifying amount of numbers. And you would think this is a really simple design because it's a box. There's no shaping at all. It's like the same shape as my granny stripe cardigan, but it will use way less yarn and the construction is very, very different. But no, the amount of numbers that have gone into this is like a ridiculous amount of numbers. But I am very much enjoying working with this Cascade 220 Superwash. It is soft and plump. It doesn't split. It's really rich and deep in color. And I would definitely buy this again to make a project with. It was the same exact price from Webs, which is yarn.com, as the Knit Pick Stroll yarn, as well as the Webs Valley yarns. I don't remember what their fingering weight is called. Maybe Hayden though, but probably not. But Valley Yarns has a fingering weight that's very similar. And the prices were within a penny of each other. And if you're in America and you order from Webs, yarn.com, most of their yarn is eligible for the Webs discount, where if you buy a certain amount, you get 20% off. I want to say it's like $100 or something, which is a lot of money. But if you're buying sweater quantities of yarn, not so much money, especially if you're buying like 2 at a time. If you save up, you will get 20% off. And at some point, depending on what you spend, you get 25% off. So it is a really And that's where I got this cascade yarn from, was Webs. Maybe it's $80. I don't remember. Look, if you go into the Webs website, which is yarn.com. How many times can I say yarn.com? This is not an ad. They're not paying me. They don't even know who I am. But I just really have enjoyed purchasing yarn from Webs in the past. I really like their discount, and I really like this cascade yarn that is included. Most of the yarn on the website is included. I do believe that Knit Picks has a similar discount. You must use a code. So if you buy, I think 10 or more balls of any yarn, you can get 20% off as well. So I would have used that same code if I were going with the Knit Picks Stroll yarn in black, which was one of the contenders for this cardigan. But I've used Knit Picks Stroll before, and I had not used the Cascade 220 Superwash fingering, and I wanted to use that, and I'm really, really happy with it. So the next step for me is frog this corner, remark the armholes, and then start this again. And I am 99.9% sure that it will work this time. I have all the numbers for below the armhole join highlighted in yellow on my spreadsheet because I want to double check them when I get there, but it should be okay. And I'm really, really happy with this. Once I get all of this marked and going, this again will be a project that I can just pick up and work on, and I don't have to do too much thinking, because once you have the pattern repeat memorized, you be flying through this. So yes, this whole bag is full of Cascade 220 Superwash in black. I have now turned into the person that cannot crochet with black yarn without a spotlight directly beaming on my lap. I just can't even see it. Can't see the yarn. I don't know when that happened. I used to be able to crochet and knit with black yarn with no problem, but apparently it's a problem now. Is it a problem for you? So yes, there's not a lot of frogging going on, but much progress. Big progress in 2 designs. One will get frogged. One will get frogged again. The last project I want to show you is the Cozy Classic Raglan, which is a pattern by Jessie May. And I'm gonna have to be very careful because this is on 3 working sets of needles at the moment. All of the yarn is on the inside of the sweater, and I have officially finished 1 full skein of yarn, and I'm almost through the second one. And I don't know how well I'm gonna be able to show this to you, but the last time we talked about this sweater, I had been working on the body and I had only a little bit of the first skein left. And so what I've done is I finished that point to the body, which was probably another 3 or 4 rows from the last time you saw this. And then I have picked up, oh, the yarn just fell out. I have picked up for the stitches. I have picked up the stitches for the armholes and knit each armhole or each sleeve down to the point where the first skein ends. So this entire sweater is both alternating skeins and helical knitting. Helical knitting for alternating skeins, and I am fading this. So these 2, this looks very similar, I'm sure, to you, because these are the same colorway and the same yarn. But they were very different. The first one had a lot more green and the second one had a lot more gray and purple. So I've been alternating skeins since completing the neckband. And you can tell that I didn't complete the neckband or didn't alternate when doing the neckband because it's pulling right here, which doesn't bother me because it's just a neckband. But if I had continued doing that, there would have definitely been some pulling, and I don't like pulling. So this has gotten, the sleeves took me probably 2 hours to get to this point. The baby went to bed at 6:30 one night this week because she took a really short nap that day. And my husband was doing something. He was doing something that didn't involve me at all. So I sat on the couch for 2 hours, maybe a little longer, and knit each sleeve to the same exact point. So I'm 23 rows into each sleeve, and I am 23 rows into the body. So excited about that. I want to show you, this is how much I have left of the second skein on the inside of the body. It looks like more yarn than it is because it's empty on the inside. This is the next skein that I will be adding. If I can dig it out. This is What is it? Is this number? No, this is number 3. So I wrote when I planned this fade out, oh no, I'm gonna sneeze. Shoo! Good Lord. Excuse me. There's something blooming. I've been sneezing nonstop today. This is Northern Lights. Is that the colorway? Cozy Colorworks Superwash Merino in Northern Lights. I'm guessing it's 100% superwash merino because it doesn't say anything else on the label. This first yarn is Miss Babs Cashmere Merino Nylon Cashmere Blend. I think it's 80-10-10 perhaps. And this I am going to immediately start fading in. And it's very similar, but it has less purple and little pops of green. So I'm going to start helical knitting this in immediately once I wind off enough yarn for the sleeves. So what I'm going to do is split this into 2 50-gram balls. 50 grams of this will go into the body of the sweater, and then the other 50-gram ball will be split in half, and 25 grams will go each into the sleeves. And I am keeping track of the body rounds as I complete them so that I can have the exact same number in the sleeves as well. I will end up with a little bit of extra yarn for the sleeves because they're decreasing, but I think that's worth it. This is skein number 3. This is skein number 4, which is a little bit darker. And this is 100% superwash merino as well from Aya Fibers. And then I think that that will be enough yarn, honestly. But if it's not, I have a number 5 as well. Certainly this will be enough for the sleeves. And maybe put this at the bottom, I don't know. So very, very happy with this. It just takes, I can't take this anywhere because there's too many needles on it, and there is currently 6 balls of yarn attached to this. That's too many balls for me to do anything but sit on the couch. And pro tip, if you have an interchangeable set of needles and you're doing something like this, you don't need to necessarily put needle stoppers on. And also that sometimes will put a lot of tension on this one stitch where you're going around in a circle. A lot of interchangeable sets have holes through the needles so that you can tighten them with a T-pen or something. And so I just put a light bulb stitch marker through that hole and it locks it. And I am not worried about the sleeves falling off. I don't have any stoppers on the body, which is dangerous. Truly dangerous, but I will rectify that. I didn't have any in my bag. I have all of this stuff in my bag. Did I have any needle stoppers? No. Clearly I need to get some more. But yeah, that's quite exciting. I did almost another 50 grams of yarn put into that sweater since you last saw it. And now that I have the process down of the helical knitting and the weighing of the yarn and the splitting of the balls, it should go much faster. I'll just be knitting in a circle and doing some decreases on the sleeves. So yeah, that's all I've been working on. That's enough, isn't it? I had so much stuff in the last 2 weeks, especially, I mean, it's more than it would be if I were home for all of that, but because I traveled for 4 days, 3 projects got work, including 1 entire socket hat, which I'm really, really happy about. So that's all the stuff that I've been working on. I am going to talk about Rhinebeck now. I do have some yarn to show you, and I don't want to give anyone FOMO. I don't want to make anyone feel a certain way. So if that's not for you, feel free to sign off. It's totally okay. I don't have loads and loads of yarn to show you. I have some yarn to show you and 1 bag. And I already showed you the little sheepies that were so cute. So Friday morning, I got up and I got Nova up. I'd been prepping Nova all week. Mommy was going on a trip. She was gonna have special Daddy Nova time. And oh my gosh, did they have a blast. They did so much stuff. If I had been home, they would not have done anything like that. They went to this place called the Fairgrounds in St. Pete, which is like an interactive museum, and she loved it. The next day, they went to the Saturday morning market, which had salsa music. So now she's obsessed with salsa music and is always asking me to play it. She got a balloon animal. She had kettle corn. I don't remember what they did that evening. But then the next day was Sunday and they went to a pumpkin patch. Like, they did so many fun things. I'm just really, really happy for them to have all of that time together. And I know she missed me and I missed her. I didn't really think about her too much on Friday because we were traveling the whole day. Saturday was very, very busy. Sunday I missed her. And Monday I was ready to see my baby. So, I haven't been away from her since she's been born. So I was really, really ready to see my baby. And of course I got home Monday night after she went to bed. But I saw her Tuesday. And Tuesday, she was a grouch, but I expected that because I had not been home. And I knew it was coming. But she had such a blast with her dada. So, and I brought her a Nuffle Bunny back. And I FaceTimed her every day. And I brought her a little wooden robot. So it was really, really special for them to get time together and also for me to be away. So what happened was we flew from Tampa. And by we, I mean me and my dear friend Maria, who lives like half an hour away from me. She is Fat Bunny for Olive and 2U on Instagram, but she used to have a yarn company called Fat Bunny Yarns, which she's closed. But she now works for Olive and 2U, which is another kind of local, they live like in Orlando area, local yarn dyer to me. They make beautiful yarn. In fact, I'll show you a mini skein that I have from them. And we went together. So she picked me up, we parked at the airport, and we hopped on our plane to LaGuardia. We flew into LaGuardia because it was so much cheaper than flying into upstate. But so I had to rent a car anyways, right? Because to get to Rhinebeck, like there's no kind of shuttles from an Airbnb. You'd have to stay in a hotel, and then I would be staying with someone, and I wanted my own bed. So it was a whole thing. So I was like, well, I'm gonna rent a car either way. So I will save money by flying into LaGuardia. And I know a bunch of you commented last time and you were like, oh my gosh, you're gonna be driving in New York City. Driving in New York City does not stress me out. I think New York City is better to drive in than Atlanta. Atlanta is just as bad as New York City, but there's more lanes. There's like 8 lanes in Atlanta and everyone's going 80 miles an hour. The first time I drove in Atlanta was in college and I literally cried. I was on my way to my boyfriend's house. He was in the passenger seat. And I cried and pulled over and made him drive. Because there are people that merge in Atlanta across those roads, like 6 lanes at a time. They just go flying. And in New York, you can't do that. First of all, there's not that many lanes. And second of all, everyone's going slow. So is it a pain to drive in New York? Yes, but it's not stressful, at least to me. I was like, whatever, if we make a wrong turn, the GPS will reroute us. It will be fine. LaGuardia is a garbage airport though. That's why it was so cheap. And JFK is also a garbage airport. I'm sorry if these are your beloved favorite airports, but I live in the Tampa airport is like the quintessential best airport of all time. It's so clean, it's so bright, it's so easy to navigate, it's beautiful. So we flew into Terminal C, which if you know anything about LaGuardia currently is under massive construction. So by the time we got out of Terminal C, which is like a 20-minute walk, we had to then take a shuttle to Terminal A because we had to get a rental car. And the rental people, because of the construction, were not picking up from Terminal C. So we had to wait and then cram onto a New York shuttle bus. It was the most New York thing I've done in a long time. I was like this close to people. Way too many people in a small space. And then we crammed onto that bus. Then we got off at Terminal A and then we had to get on a different bus to go get the rental car. So by the time all of that happened, even though we landed at like 2, it was 4 by the time we got our rental car, maybe a little after 4, which is rush hour in New York City. So it took us an hour, maybe an hour and a half to get out of the city. But once we were out of the city, it was totally fine. We cleared the city and then we stopped at Starbucks, got some caffeine and some snacks and a bathroom break. And then we drove up to our Airbnb, which was in Hudson, New York, which is like half an hour actually north of Rhinebeck. So it was about 100 miles, I think, from the airport, maybe 110. Beautiful drive. Like just the leaves are changing. It's windy and hilly and gorgeous. And it was so pretty. So we did that. Then we unpacked, we unloaded, and we went in search of dinner because we were very hungry. We tried to go to this place called Back Bar, but they were closed for like I don't know if it was an engagement party or a baby party, but everyone seemed very happy inside. And it said like, congrats somebody. So it was closed. So we went and had some barbecue that was fine. And then we pretty much went back and went to bed. We were so tired. But the next morning was Rhinebeck. New York sheep and wool. Okay, so we drove to Rhinebeck. I would say it maybe took us half an hour to get in the parking lot because we didn't really get in as early as maybe we should have. I don't know. We got there about 9:30. It opens at 9. And the reason we got there at 9:30 is because we stopped for coffee, and the place we stopped for coffee took like forever to get us our coffee. But it's fine, like we weren't on a schedule, so who cares? And literally sitting in traffic, not moving, I was knitting on that hat. What are you supposed to do when you sit in traffic? Most people look at their phone. I was knitting. And I had great company, so it was totally fine. We got in, and when we got inside, we met up with my dear friend, Stevie. Hi, Stevie, who lives in upstate New York and goes to Rhinebeck every year. And we got like a personal tour of New York sheep and wool from Stevie, and we got to hang out with Stevie all day, Saturday and all day Sunday. And I was just A, delighted to see Stevie, but B, so thankful because she gave us so many tips on what to do. So we go in, and it's kind of like hilly. So the hill, everyone has heard about, I'm sure if you've heard about Rhinebeck, the hill that everyone meets on, it's like barely a hill compared to the other hills at the fairgrounds. It's a smaller hill than the other hills. But anyways, there's a hill, and that's where people hang out. And there were when you go in, you can go up to the right, and there's like 3 huge barns that have stuff in them. Vendors and fleeces and things like that. And then there's a big open area that has food of all kinds, food truck, fair food. And then you can go down, and there's a 2-level barn that has vendors. And then behind that, all on this side, is a whole bunch of other barns. And these are actual barns where like you would keep animals in stalls for 4-H. I was in 4-H as a child, which is like a youth development program if you're not from the country of the United States. And I mean the country, not the country USA, like the country with cowboy hats. Like that's where I grew up. So I was in 4-H. There's another one called FFA, which is Future Farmers of America. I loved 4-H as a kid. I didn't own any animals really, but I was in a horseback riding club and a scrapbooking club, and it gave me so many opportunities because they had like a county council meeting every month that the kids were running. And like I think I was the treasurer, the secretary, and the vice president all at different times of that meeting. So that gave me like experience dealing with people. I went to legislature, which is where all the 4-H kids take over the Florida legislature for 1 week in the summer a year when the actual politicians are off of their session. And like I went to that every year because it was amazing. And you start out as a lobbyist trying to convince people to support your bill, and then you can be a congressperson, and then you can be a senator. It was really, really cool. And I also did 4-H Congress, which is like the statewide 4-H meeting every year, which again is largely run by children, even though there's adult supervision. And so like I was a voting member, and I got to like participate and do all this fun stuff. And it just was really, really impactful, I think, especially looking back, because that was like 15 years ago now, maybe longer. It was a huge impact on my teenage self and gave me a lot of skills. So I love 4-H, and 4-H actually owns a couple of the barns, I think, at the fairgrounds, and people like raise animals and show animals, and they have auctions and all of this stuff. So some of these barns are where you would keep actual animals. And so they put a bunch of like sawdust down and put mats down on top, and that's where the vendors are. And then there were barns that had sheep in them and goats. There was a llama parade. There was llamas and alpacas and goats on parade every single day, which was adorable. So that's kind of the setup. And Stevie's suggestion was we go one barn at a time, we walk through at our own pace, and we meet at the end. So because that way we don't have to stay together. There were so many people there on Saturday. And I heard somebody saying there was like 20,000 to 25,000 people were coming through over the weekend. That is a crazy amount of people. I wasn't planning on buying things on Saturday unless they really, really spoke to me. And there were a few things that did. So first of all was the bunny that I bought for Nova. And I clocked that immediately. And I would say maybe 20 minutes later, I went back and bought it. I knew it was exactly what I was looking for. Then I wanted to visit the Miss Babs yarn because I've been working on this sweater that has Miss Babs yarn, and her stall was just slammed. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. I'll visit that tomorrow on Sunday. There was also another booth called Fiber Optic, which I was in the same barn number 1, and I was like, I wanna go back there, but again, it was slammed. And I know myself well enough to know, like, I don't wanna be like elbowing people to get through. That's not how I make good decisions. So I was just like, I'll just clock that, I'll see it later. So there were 2 booths I wanted to go back to. And then we looked and looked and looked at all the things. And then in the 2-level barn, there was a bag maker. And I can't even think, what is it called? Cottontail Farm. She had Harris tweed bags. She had all kinds of project bags, but she had Harris tweed bags. And I have 2 things that have Harris tweed on them. One is a project bag that I got from Faye of Providence Craft Co. and formerly the Crochet Circle podcast. Hi, Faye. And the other one was a bag that I got when Josiah and I went to the UK in 2018. I got a little backpack that was my purse forever until I had a baby and I needed more space. So I clocked that and I was like, ooh, I think I want a Harris tweed bag. But let me sit on that because I wasn't really making any purchases right then. I was just looking at everything. And so we looked at all the barns. We got some food. I don't remember what we ate, some kind of sandwich because the lines for food were insane. Then we, in the very last barn that we went into was this vendor called Cece's Wool, which my friend Maria wanted to go to. She wanted to look to see if they had they had a special colorway by Lola Bean Yarn Company from Adela, who is Lola Bean Yarn Company, and they were all sold out of that, but Maria was looking at their yarn, and I had never seen Cece's Wool before, and I bought something immediately, which I almost never do. Even if I'm going to buy something, I like kind of clock it like I did the Harris tweed bag in my head, and I'll come back around to it if I really want it. But I saw this yarn and I instantly knew that this is the yarn that I have been looking for over a year. And I will show you what project it is for. I have wanted to make, if I can pull it up, the super bulky grandpa sweater, which is a pattern by Joji Locatelli. I have had this in my favorites for ages. I have had it in my queue for over a year, I believe. And let's see if it tells me when I added it. I've had it in my queue since April. So I guess that's not very long in my queue. But I have had my eyes on this project for so long, and I have been looking for yarn for this project forever. And I either could not find the right color, like I just couldn't find a color that spoke to me, and like I've been thinking maybe I'll make it in gray like in the picture, but I wanted a darker gray than that, and all these grays are like just pale and blah, and I just could never do it. Or I would find a good color, but then the yarn would be single ply, and I didn't want to make this in a single ply yarn. I want to make it in a plied yarn so it can be sturdier, especially because it's so big. And I saw tons of bulky yarn at Rhinebeck, and most of it was single ply. Which, okay, fine, but like I need plied yarn. And when I walked into Cece's yarn and I saw this, Cece's booth, and I saw this yarn, I just knew that this was the yarn that needed to be this sweater. So let me show it to you. I bought enough to make, now the only thing I will say is, this is her bag. Cece's Wool. This is a bulky yarn, not a super bulky yarn. And so I panicked and bought maybe more than I need because I didn't have time to do a swatch or do the math. I think you need about 600 to 650 yards for the size that I want to make in this sweater of super bulky yarn. I have 800 yards of bulky yarn, but of course my gauge is going to be different. I'm fine doing the math to modify the pattern or make a different size, but I did not want to run out of yarn because 1, this colorway is not on her website, and 2, there's just no way the dye lot will be the same. And I knew that I had to buy this right away or it was not going to be there. And it wasn't. I went back the next morning to pick up one more skein of it because I was afraid I was going to run out. And I got one of the last 2 remaining skeins of this colorway. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's such a good thing that I bought it. That's enough lead up, isn't it? This is the yarn. I don't know if this is as magical to you as it is to me. I don't know what it is about this yarn, but it is everything I have ever wanted. It is called American U yarn, bulky. It is the colorway Monster Mash, and it is 3-ply Merino Rambouillet yarn. It's really, really soft. And this yarn is sustainable. So this comes from Shanico Wool Company, which is certified under the Responsible Wool Standard and audited to ensure the welfare of the sheep and the workers and everything about that. It's made in the USA and dyed in the USA, which is really cool. And these are 8-ounce skeins. So Cece's Wool does something really cool, and I think you should know about this because this is on her website as well, that you can buy giant skeins of yarn for cheaper. So this is 8 ounces of yarn. So that's two skeins. So a normal skein is 3.5. So it's 2 skeins of yarn plus an extra ounce for much cheaper than you could get that. So I bought enough to make this super bulky grandpa sweater. And then I panicked that night and I was like, oh my gosh, what if I don't have enough yarn? And so the next morning I ran back and got this, which is a smaller one. This is just a 3.5 ounce skein of it. And like I said, there was only 2 left and I got one of them. So it's a good thing I ran back. I don't think I'm actually going to use it. Like, I feel like I'm not going to run out of yarn, but then I can make a hat out of this or something. I would rather have too much than not enough because, oh my gosh, it would be a crime. I would cry, I think, if I got to the end of this sweater and couldn't finish it because I didn't have enough yarn. So this is the colorway Monster Mash, and it is just amazing. It is everything I wanted it to be. I knew immediately that this yarn had to be for that sweater. I've been looking for that yarn. I didn't know I was looking for that specific yarn, but I've been looking for yarn for this sweater for a really long time, and so I was really, really, really happy to find it. So that was that purchase. Then I went back because after that I just knew that I wanted one of those Harris Tweed bags. And so I had budgeted for 1 sweater quantity of yarn. I wanted to buy a sock set, which there were none. I saw zero sock sets at Rhinebeck in any booth from any vendor. And I saw almost no self-striping yarn, which is super weird to me. Maybe that's just not a thing that sells at Rhinebeck. I don't know. You'd think there'd be a lot of sock knitters, but there were no sock sets, so I did not come home with one. But I had budgeted for a sock set, a sweater quantity of yarn, and some kind of bag or notion to come home with. And then a couple of you had been so kind and supported another yarn purchase, another sweater quantity of yarn. And then because of my pattern releases recently, I was able to buy a little bit more. So that is where all of this came from. That super bulky yarn is what I bought. If you sent me a coffee donation or anything else, like that is what that came. So that will be content for this podcast for sure. This bag, I went back and bought it because it just called to me. I love it so much. It's a big drawstring bag. It's got a leather handle. It's got a leather strap right here. It's from Cottontail Farm, which is in Virginia. And on the inside, it has 2 pockets, and it's canvas. I just really, really liked it. She also had some that were zipper, but the zipper ones didn't have pockets inside. And in here is a bunch of random stuff. There's a little pumpkin. I saw a viewer of this podcast named Joanna. Hi, Joanna. She gave me a beautiful little pumpkin, so I brought that home. I think I'm actually going to put a hook on this and make it a Christmas tree ornament. I have some random stickers. Stevie gave me some stitch markers and some cords to hold sleeve stitches, which was so nice of her. I have in here, oh, this was just the package for those little sheep stitch markers not stitch markers, needle stoppers. And I have some random like cards from people and stuff like that. I did run into Ken, is that Ken Yarn? And he said he liked my sweater and he gave me his last pack of buttons. He's handing out these like handmade acrylic buttons. And I may have fangirled at him. I was like, oh, are you? Is that cane yarn? And I made him take a picture with me. So he gave me these buttons. I don't know what I'm going to use them for. I was initially like, oh, I could put them on the super bulky grandpa sweater, but that does not match. So I'll have to think of another sweater that these can go on. But yeah, this is everything I wanted it to be and more. That bag is so, so beautiful. That's what I bought the first day. The yarn, that bag, and the bunny for Nova. The second day was Sunday. Oh, Saturday night we tried again to go to this place called Back Bar in Hudson, and it was open and it was delicious. I had dan dan noodles, which is like spicy ramen noodles. It was so spicy I couldn't feel my lips. It was amazing, amazing. It was so amazing that we went there Sunday night too. I loved that food. It's the best food I've had in a long time. Sunday morning, my goal was to go straight to Miss Babs and get a sweater quantity of yarn, because I had seen from far away, I couldn't get to the booth, that Miss Babs had these giant skeins of fingering weight yarn that were cheaper than if you bought them individually. So I booked it, and they were like this beautiful pink color. I booked it to Miss Babs, and I saw the giant skein, and I realized that it was Blueface Leicester BFL yarn, and I put it up to my neck, and it immediately made me a little scratchy. So I was like, oh, okay. So I'm not going to buy this for a sweater because it's too scratchy for me. I know I won't wear it. My skin is so sensitive. She only had like 2 skeins in that color of the merino base, so there wasn't enough. And so I wasn't gonna buy just 2 of them because that's not enough to make a sweater. So I didn't buy anything from Miss Babs actually. And then I went to Fiber Optic, which is the booth that I had wanted to get into the day before. And I found this yarn. So this is what I got instead of the yarn from Miss Babs. What sold me on this yarn was actually that there was a swatch of it knitted up. And I had this yarn in my hand, and then I had a beautiful tonal purple, and I had a beautiful tonal like teal. And they were all gorgeous. If I was made of money, I would have come home with a sweater's quantity in all of them. But this is called Peacocks, which yes, it is. This had a swatch knitted up, and it was so beautiful because you'd think this is like a variegated yarn, which it is, but in the swatch, it's like this subtle, almost like a peacock feather, like subtle changing yarn, and it is so beautiful. And so what I did, this is for a boxy, which is another pattern by Joji Locatelli. I will of course be alternating skeins, but yes, this will become at some point a boxy sweater. It's earmarked. I'm very, very excited about it. It's so, so, so pretty. I just have never, it's one of the most beautiful yarns I've ever seen. Like, whoa. Amazing. Just amazing. So that one is the booth that I went back to. Then I had to go back to Cece's Wool to get that other skein because I was panicking like I'm not gonna have enough yarn. And this is what I came home with. This is kind of what I was trying to get at Miss Babs, but the skein was just a little too scratchy. This is merino, I believe. Yes, it's 100% merino. This is 8 ounces, 1,100 yards in the colorway Purple Magic. This is going to be the high wire sweater. Let me see if I can pull up a picture for you. It's this. It's patterned by Stephanie Aaron. It was in issue 1 of Morit. That is a long sleeve crochet sweater. All I have to do is dig through my stash and find about 80 yards of a contrast color to put with this, and that will be a sweater. And then I don't think the boxy is in my queue. I've just wanted to make it forever. Let me pull up a picture of the boxy sweater so that you can see it if you haven't. Boxy, go. Boxy. That's the boxy sweater. It's super, 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 super cute. I think it will just be perfect for that fiber optic yarn. So this yarn will become the high wire sweater. So really, I only bought yarn from two places, CC's Wool and Fiber Optic. And I came home with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 11 skeins of yarn. Granted, some of them are massive. Actually make that 12 because we did go to a yarn store called Fabulous Yarn or Fab Yarn, which was really small but really cute. And Maria bought some really fancy like silk beaded yarn there. And then the next day we went to the Perfect Blend, which is a tea and yarn store. And I was still looking for a sock set, which they did not have. Actually, they had a couple of sock sets from Emma's Yarn, but I was like, I'm not gonna drive all the way to New York so that I can buy yarn from Orlando. But what I did come home with was a Zauber ball. And for some reason, this is like my travel yarn. I bought one of these when I was in the UK and it became a pair of socks. And then when I was in Orlando meeting Clarizabeth and Caroline, I bought a Zauber ball yarn. And then in New York, I bought one too. And I really love this yarn. It's really hard wearing. It makes really great socks. So I'm excited to make socks with these. The only other thing that I purchased was a couple of dollars. And it was a Christmas ornament. I must have walked past this thing like 8 times. And finally I was like, I need it. It has to come home with me. It just has to. It's so adorable. It's going on the Christmas tree. As is that little pumpkin. And then I also came home with this beautiful little mini and pen from Olive and 2U, which this was a gift. The colorway In the Mood, which I think is really, really, really beautiful. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but it is gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And that's it. I don't know if you think that that's an insane amount of yarn or not an insane amount of yarn. I saw some people with like push carts full of yarn, which is crazy to me that someone could buy that much yarn at Rhinebeck. I love it. I love that they could buy that much yarn at Rhinebeck. I would never have been able to get any more home. I went with a carry-on and my backpack. My backpack was almost empty. And on the way home, it was full. And if I had gotten anything else, I would have had to mail it home to myself, probably. So yeah, we did that. It was really, really lovely. Monday we got up, we drove to New York City, drove in New York City, dropped the rental car off, and then came home on the airplane. It was a long travel day, but it was really, really beautiful drive. I will say one thing about New York City, even though it's not, I didn't find it stressful to drive in, the state of y'all's roads is appalling. I do not understand. I mean, I know it's like winter up there and like potholes and stuff, but like in a city of that many people with that much money in that city, to have roads that are in that bad of condition in New York City, because they're not that bad of condition outside the city, just in the city, is shocking to me. Like, how? There were roads that we were driving on that were like, it was like driving on a cheese grater. Like literally just like rattle your teeth. Potholes, like patches on patches on patches. There were points of the road, multiple points when we were driving through Queens. There were no lines. There were no lane markings on the road whatsoever. Like they just faded and weren't there. So there's 3 lanes of traffic going in a direction, no lane markings. What? How is this even possible? I don't understand. Like we didn't get in an accident, but geez, y'all, like, fix your roads. I don't know what's going on up there in New York City, but like that is crazy town. At one point, and I know they don't have a lot of room, so this one I feel like is understandable, but they were doing some bridge construction on whatever bridge we were on, and there's supposed to be 3 lanes going in either direction, but the middle of the road was having construction on it. So we were going this way, right? There's 3 lanes of traffic coming this way. They split the lanes. So there's 2 lanes of traffic going this way. And then randomly, this lane over here goes into oncoming traffic. It is the smallest lane I've ever driven in. Like concrete barriers, like this close to your car on either side, and small concrete barriers. So literally you're like inches from oncoming traffic going the other direction. And we just drove like that for like 2 miles. And I was like, okay, well, I hope no accident happens in this lane, because literally no one will be able to leave. Like, a tow truck will not be able to come. None of these cars will be able to get out. We're just stuck here until we die, I guess. But nothing happened. It was fine. I just could not believe the state of the roads in New York City. It is real bad. Crazy. As soon as we got out of the city, beautiful roads. And we drove like all on the back roads, in the mountains. We drove on the interstate. Like, we drove all of that. It was fine. Just in the city, it's crap. So yeah, if you live in New York City and you have to drive anywhere, I am deeply sorry for you. You need to get your teeth rattled out of your head. I know most people in New York don't drive a ton, at least in the main city. But yeah, so I don't know if that's a rant or just a comment, an observation. So it was really, really fun. Re-entry into real life has been so hard. Nova was really upset on Tuesday, which of course she had big feelings because I was gone, and that's totally understandable. But I wasn't prepared for my own big feelings of like, I don't want to be back in the real world. So that was delightful. I think we're past the hump now. It's Thursday, but I'm still tired. And yeah, podcast. And then for the rest of today, I've got to edit this podcast and get it uploading. And then take Nova she goes to like a baby gym every Thursday, which she loves so much. So I got to take her to that and then come home and immediately drop her and run out the door because I'm officiating a wedding tonight. So there's just a lot going on, and I hope that I can get some crochet time in. I've got a disaster to clean up from this podcast. Yeah, so I really do need to end, I think, because I have been talking for a long time. I bet this podcast is like an hour and 15 minutes already. So please forgive me for going way over. And come back in 2 weeks. I will have another podcast episode for you. If you like this, give me a thumbs up. That just lets YouTube know that I'm making something worth watching. And also, you can subscribe. You can hit the little bell button. Both of those are down below. And then you'll get a notification in 2 weeks when I post a new video. And I just thank you for being here. I thank you for all of the love and support you have given me. Thank you for helping me make more content for this channel. I would have come home probably with just this and that bag, except for your support of my patterns and your support of this channel in general. So thank you so much for that. Until I see you again in 2 weeks, happy crafting, and I will see you soon. Bye.